Okay. Okay, so we're Team 5, my name is John. We were working on finding a new tool to diagnose childhood ophthalmologic disorders. And we're going to show you our 18-hour hack, which is a new, accessible, and cheap screening tool. So this is not a picture I took. This is a country I'm very familiar with because I spent a lot of time working in Bangladesh. This is a mother taking her child to see an eye doctor. There's obviously something very wrong with that child's eye. It turns out he has a staphylococcal infection. And I just show this just to say, if this child was blind in Bangladesh, which is a country of 150 million people the size of Iowa, this child's fate is he is going to be a visible laborer. I can pretty much guarantee that by looking at this couple. Or he's going to be a garment worker. If he goes blind, which I would say that given how bad that eye looks, is probably likely, that's going to be a devastating economic fallout for both him and his family. So the possibility of children going blind at a very young age in developing countries is a major, major issue. And it's actually quite common. So 285 million people are visually impaired, and 90% of those are living in developing countries. And even more striking, 80% of those impairments in developing countries could be corrected if they're diagnosed and treated quickly. So we're looking at things like uncorrected errors, whether it's be refractory errors, whether it be strabismus, which is a misalignment of eyes. That's 43% of these cases. Cataracts, which is when the lens is no longer clear, is 33%. Those cataracts can be in adults. We often think of cataracts in older people, but diseases can cause cataracts in children as well, mainly infectious diseases. And finally, glaucoma, which is something we think about a lot in the Western world, is only 2%. So these first two things are relatively easy to treat, and also not that hard to diagnose. So the big question is, why don't we diagnose these things in the developing world? And one answer is that this is not modern, but this is what the state of ophthalmologic diagnosis looks like. This is a slit lamp exam, and it's very complicated. It requires a power source. It's very expensive. And you can't take that to a village and have a villager use that. I don't even know how to use that thing. And the other, so what we have is we have these kind of roving vision clinics. And this is another picture from Bangladesh of a guy on a rickshaw yelling out that there's a vision screening going on. There's paddling around the streets of this village, kind of telling all the villagers to come have a children's screening. So here I think you have two of the main problems with vision screening or ophthalmologic disease screening in the developing world. One is just the expertise and the cost of actually doing it. And the second is the fact that you can only get those experts out maybe once every couple of years, once every couple of months. And as a result, people don't get screened and people go blind. So we wanted to create a tool to fix all this in children, or at least attempt to address this. You can't fix it in 18 hours. So we wanted to create a tool which allows for the screening of common visual errors in children. And we had three goals. The first was that it had to be cheap. The cost had to be cents, not dollars. Less than 50 cents was our goal. Less than 10 cents. It had to be scalable, in other words, that we could develop hundreds of thousands quickly and distribute them. And finally, it had to be universally usable. So everyone, even someone who can't read, could use it. In other words, we would give this to a villager and they would screen their own children. They would screen everyone in that village. In short, we wanted to create a Swiss Army knife of screening tools for ophthalmologic diseases. And here it is. It's thinner than a MacBook Air. It's thinner than a smartphone. It fits in an envelope. And I'm going to take this out, and this is the first time it's actually been assembled. So cross your fingers. So it's completely made of paper, except it does have a little LED in here. And I'm going to kind of go through what you can use this thing to test for. And as I do that, we will kind of slide it, because this is a sleeve and there's a slide that comes out. So we will slide this out and fit it together as we go. The only other part in here is a bridge, which we're going to put side actually on here. And just in case you're thinking I'm a total quack, here's at least the preliminary diseases this thing could actually help you screen for. And the percentage is kind of the percentage of children that actually have them. I couldn't find a percentage for all of these because we did this presentation in the last hour. So, So strabismus, which is ocular misalignment, amblyopia, which is complete loss of one eye due to disuse or misuse, hyperopia, which is difficult with far vision, retinal abnormalities, including like retinoblastoma, so tumors of the retina, lens abnormalities, most common cataracts, corneal abnormalities, you get from infectious diseases, and disease causing decreased visual acuity and color blindness. So those are the top of what they can do, and there's probably more. So there are two sides to this. This front side is the complex LED light side. This side is the dead simple kind of visual acuity side. So the first thing we have here is, this is a test for color blindness, probably the rarest condition we're actually testing for here. But you can see there's a little window here. That window actually shows you the instructions for the test you're doing at that time. And as you slide this back and forth, those instructions are going to change. And the only word here is okay with a check mark, which we assume that most people probably don't understand. So otherwise, these are all pictorial. Don't have to be able to speak English, don't have to be able to read. So here we have the colorblind test. We've done something that, for small children, they'll be more distracted by these lines and bars. So we tried to create a test that works for a very wide range of ages. So you could do this on an older child, and you could just say, can you see the lines and bars? Or younger children, we've been looking at kind of medium ophthalmologic kind of research. Younger children are more likely to be distracted by this. We often say if the child looks like they're distracted like this, more than the control, they're probably not colorblind. But you could also just say, can you see this? So this is an attempt to make it cover a broad range of ages. So that's a color perception test. There's a visual acuity test, which basically involves kind of increasing this at its full length. And as you can see, when you do that, the instructions are now different here. So if you increase, and now this is a little gauge, I'm just going to show you this little arrow pointing up through here, so you can actually align it perfectly for the test you're doing. So here's this little slot there, so you can see that arrow popping up into the slot. So you line those arrows up. And then right here, you have a little flip up to test visual acuity. And we're using the same system. So here's just a gray one, that's your control. You flip it over. You have a hash of lines. This is not the visual acuity test we're all used to seeing, just the numbers, because this is for all ages. And it's made so you can actually just line this thing right up here to your child on his nose, and you test your visual acuity just like this, and flip it over. That would be the visual acuity. And then if the child is excited by this, and not by the gray control, you know they probably can see this. Or you can actually ask the child, how many lines can you distinguish? So you can do it by kind of looking how they react, or looking at their kind of reaction aspect. So that's the acuity side of it. And if we fold it back down, so you notice we have a little stage right here. I'm going to use something to show you. So the stage actually just folds up and pops up. Fold it in here, and the tabs stick in there. So now what you have is a nice guide. So you can see a little V, that's where I'm going to sight. And you have an LED here. So in our tests, we found that green LEDs were much less harsh on the eyes. That's why there's a green LED in this. What we do is you basically set the little stage up, which simply just pops right in there. Just like that. I did put a piece of tape here just to put the light on it. This little groove that the LED stays in right here. This is the first time we really, as I said, that in prime time, so I'm going to just put a grip there. So the LED just kind of sticks right in there, as you can see. So now I've got a sight platform. I can sight down this V. And here I have a view where I line up the nose of the person, my child. So I go to the first X, which is these instructions right here, and they show up in the window. And this is, one minute, super fast, this is a corneal reflex, which basically allows me to see whether the eyes are actually deviated. I have a little measuring thing right here. And this is a perfect right now. I just take my patient, I line up his nose, I sight. That is the nose bridge, and I see two equal dots in both eyes, so I know that his eyes are not deviated at all, and they line up perfectly on the scale in front, all covered by these directions. So now let's say that I want to do my next test, which is a red reflex that actually lets me look at the retina, so if any tumor will show up here, any problem with the the lens or cornea will show up. It requires a little bit longer of a distance, so I just pull this thing out till I'm at my next mark. There are my instructions in the note between this test. And we found the best way to do this, and this is all instructions, was to study the vision of the nose, and then sweep across slowly, and you can actually see that little flash of the back of the retina when you do that. And so how do you scale this up? So how much does this cost? This costs next to nothing. This is just paper, an LED, and a battery. One way you could do this, you could print hundreds of thousands of these. You could just distribute them to villages anywhere, right? They're dirt cheap. So that'd be one way of doing it. You could do every mother who has a child, just give them one of this. They put it together. All the instructions are included in this. The other option is you just give people the blueprints. This is all paper. All you got to do is get some computer paper, fold it up, cut it. And you can make one of these for yourself at home. So what else could you do? I mean, I tend to think that simple is best, but you could also add a camera on this if you actually wanted to communicate with a doctor, because obviously if you find something wrong, if you're okay, or go to the doctor. So when you go to the doctor, you're going to actually find someone. If you wanted to communicate over distances, you could pretty easily put a little camera in here, take a picture of what you're seeing. We have kind of been playing around with lights. That's what this is here. So kind of to see which light makes the exam a little bit easier. It's been a little bit of an awkward struggle, but the green light works very well. And finally, we could expand to other conditions. I think that's our last slide. Yeah.
So how do you know what to do with your child, in what order, and how many things can be wrong when you call somebody?
Right. So that is the big thing that I think we've been dealing with a lot. And the thing is, a lot of diseases I showed have certain commonalities about a red reflex. There is the normal exam, and then there's the abnormal exam. And the abnormal exam could be one of maybe 10 or 15 different things. So the idea would be, so we try to draw the normal. And it kind of if it's anything different from that, that's when you need to find a provider. You need to actually go and have a real exam. So this is really very much a screening tool in the sense that we're saying this is a way to find those kids who have something wrong, and anyone could actually find that, but we can't tell you what it actually is. You actually have to go and retrieve it. We'll let you play with it. It's kind of fun. And but yeah, it would be great if we could say this gives you the exact diagnosis. But we kind of picked the tests that we think, are if they're abnormal, then that's something that A can be treated and B could be really, really bad.
Yeah, even something like where the treatment would be like a patch, which is relatively inexpensive. We talked about including a patch, but we don't, we didn't want to include anything that could be misused or, someone could misinterpret, they could cover the wrong eye or whatever. We wanted to just, say there is probably something wrong. You can admit your child to the doctor. We don't want to say what's actually wrong.
That's the wrong eye, and then we would be in trouble with the advice of business, and they were going to lose use of the eye, they catch the good eye. So it's more the diagnostic that this is.
And it was also just a question of, like, for the instructions, we couldn't include words, so we had to make them really, really basic, even in terms of showing what's abnormal. It's difficult to show that in pictures when there can be such a wide range of what's abnormal, but we think we did it.
We made it very good.
Yeah. Last question, please.
Yeah.
So who would actually administer the test? Is it the parents or would it require some training?
The idea our hope was that you would require no training at all, that you could just pick this up and use it. That being said, we've been playing with it for 18 hours, and we all were able to do all the tests. I'm medically trained, so I think I probably did it a little bit better than these guys, but they all saw the findings that we were looking for, so it's not impossible. This is one of those things that this may be a bit of a pipe dream on our part, but we felt like we need to make something dead simple that can actually allow you to do it.
You can even make that a little bigger and make the instructions more clear, because they are very small. Like the size of a postage stamp, each little.
extra comments. I think that would be a great candidate for flex technology, flexible circuits, screens, et cetera, those are really coming into the live light. So it's really cool that you have such a small form factor. Like there's a lot of potential with that.
Yeah, I think that would be electronic wise. Yeah, because we were kind of just thinking about other things we could do, and unfortunately we didn't. We were going to show this, but this we can't do it on one thing. This is all it is. So.
We wanted to make it something that didn't involve a lot of electronics.
But obviously there are aspects that